Welcome to the Fire from Two Windows podcast, where we take a deep dive into different aspects of the fire service. My name is Matt Humnicki, and I am joined with my co-host, Lou Caminelli. We want to express that these are our own opinions built by experiences and education while honing our craft. These are not the opinions nor direction from our various employers. We are here on our own to spur conversation and help level the playing field for all. Good evening, Lou.
What's up, Matt? How are you?
Not bad. Just took a tree down today. Grueling process, as you are familiar with. I know you're dealing with some trees with the neighbors and kind of splitting wood and using that as a learning tool for your son.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Getting versed in stacking firewood.
It's a good process. It's a good workout all the way around.
Oh, yeah.
We grew up, we had property. My uncle has property, and every few years we would log, and they come in and it seems like they didn't cut any trees down, but it helps you sell the wood and it helps pay for the property taxes and everything. So you go down there, and usually beginning of summer, end of summer, we have 2 weekends that we go down. It's just all cutting wood and kind of hanging out with the family and doing camping thing. And man, we did the logging thing for years, and now it's been a while. I'll admit it. It's been a while, and busted out all the equipment today and got that done. One of the guys from work came out, helped me drop this thing, limit, drop it. And then I was just cleaning it all day, and it was a massive maple. So it's a good workout. I didn't have to go to the gym because I've been in the gym all day, essentially.
Yeah. Splitting wood's no joke.
No, it is not. And I still have yet to split it. I got it all cut up, stacked the way I want, what I want to keep, what I don't. Anyways, big workout day. I'm exhausted.
Nice.
So I got an interesting topic for us, and we can cut through this any way we want. A friend of mine, sent me a message. He's in the fire service. He sent me an article relating to that Chicago Fire Department new policy. And he said, am I reading this wrong? And I said, hey, okay, hang on a second. I got to read the whole thing. So I read through the whole thing, and I said, I don't understand what the issue is. And he said, you didn't see that section. And he sent it back with a highlighted section, and that section being what everybody, I think, is complaining about noticed on the internet. This section number 4, immediate interior attack and search rescue operation, only if they're clearly visible victims who are in imminent danger, or if information is received from the fire alarm office or from person on scene that there are victims trapped inside this structure. Now, without the rest of the context, that sounds like, hey, you're going to go defensive. And then they even state in one of these lines that if you're the first arriving officer, you will be fighting this thing to start as a defensive operation. Now, I'm not going to go into the whole policy. Everybody can see this. This is their General Order 25-002, which looks like it came out on June 18th. Now, reading this whole thing, what I took away from it was we have to establish a policy for our first arriving officers, more junior, I would say, rather than a battalion chief or a full-blown chief. So they even give the example that if you're an engine company that has a boss and you arrive on scene well ahead of any other boss, you are to establish command. And then it goes through how to establish command. It goes through the ICS, all the principles and all that. And to me, when I read this, I gathered that they may have been having a little bit of trouble. Now, I can't second guess their work, and I'm drawing from context, but I have seen in my experience other departments operate with this issue where when you pull up on scene, a command presence is not established. In other words, ICS is never established. For an EMS call, something small, smells and bells call, okay, that's one thing. But if it's a full-blown worker, you show up and you see fire blowing, or you see smoke coming from the eaves, or even from a box store, that command structure is important to establish. And by posting this policy, it's taking the principles of ICS, NIMS, all that stuff that on a national level we're supposed to be following as a guideline, whatever. And now it's putting it into a policy. It says you will do this, because so many times there are departments out there who never establish this stuff. So when I read this, I go, oh, maybe if I could make a defensible argument, they were having an issue with officers just going in with their crews. Nothing is established on the outside. So now you have a crew with a boss, the only boss so far on scene, now inside the building. So we lose accountability, we lose communications, we don't have a good idea of what's going on, and there's nobody outside to know what's going on inside and outside and who else is coming. So to me, what I recognize is that this is establishing that command system, and then it even gives details of, okay, when somebody else that is equal or above, then you can transfer that command and go back to your crew. Now, draw back a little bit. This is Chicago. That's a big department. You're getting everybody coming to this structure fire if it's deemed so. So when you have something like that, what are you without? You're without a commanding officer above a lieutenant for what, maybe 30 seconds? They're saying get this started, pull back a second, detach so that we can make smart decisions. It's not saying we are always going defensive just because we don't know how to go interior. This is a policy, I believe, to establish a rule and a culture that says just establish command. It'll only be a couple seconds. Get your stuff in order. Take the time to stretch your lines. Get going. When the boss gets there, then you can go in. Maybe I read that wrong. Did you read the whole policy?
I skimmed through it. We never had when I first got on the job here, we never had the policy that stated that, but our fire chief at the time kind of wanted our bosses to do that, which none of us understood, because when we got, at that time, there was 6 guys on duty. And if that first arriving engine was on scene, it was 2 guys on the engine and then a duty officer. And it reminds me of you can find it on YouTube. It's Chief John Salka, one of his lectures that he had at it might have been the first Andy Fredericks training days, where he talks about this, about having the first arriving company officer establish a formal command in the front yard. And it's like, what are you in command of? And this, I have trouble with this one. And I don't know if I'm interpreting, we might be interpreting it differently, but you're standing out front in command of what? You have, if the city of Chicago is probably fully staffed, and I don't know what their staffing levels are. Generality, let's say they're a 4-person engine, chauffeur, officer, fireman. That officer, his main job is to supervise the firemen on the inside, not to stand outside. The battalion chief or the next incoming officer, whoever's taking command, they know especially if it's an engine company, they know exactly where that officer is in charge. You just follow the hose line. This is almost exactly what Chief John Salka said in his lecture. The other problem I have with it is there was a Project Mayday, and I know these numbers are wrong, but they're generally close. It was like somewhere near 80 to 85% of all Maydays occurred when the company officer, the first arriving company officer, established a formal command out front and didn't go inside with his guys. And that constituted a Mayday happening, because now you have junior firemen going inside the structure and fighting a fire. Now, where this policy says that they will start defensive, they're not even allowing their policy won't even allow their members to operate inside until there's a battalion chief on scene. I think I was just reading it. Or I don't know what an FSR chief officer is, but it says first arriving battalion chief or other FSR chief officer. And I probably could Google what an FSR chief officer is. But what if the fire departments are broken up into battalions by geographical locations? And I'm sure the city of Chicago has a chance of having multiple fires going on at once. So what happens if that battalion chief is at a job already and you're getting another battalion chief from a distance? Now we're delaying our interior attack.
I would have to guess that they understand that. And for exactly that example, because if you don't have that battalion chief, or for some time you don't have a commanding officer outside to see and organize from the outside what crews are, like if you just have one crew in there and they're waiting that same time limit, whether it's 30 seconds or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, without anybody on the outside, what happens when they get into trouble? Who is responsible for them other than that company officer that's now inside with them? That whole unit is buried deep. And I got the impression that this is a policy laying out the future to always establish a command system, because too oftentimes there has not been one. Now, I might be press fitting an experience of my own onto this thing and going, oh, this is a great idea because all these department, blah, 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 X, Y, and Z's departments don't do it at all. And too many times you have Yahoo cowboy shit going on. And trust me, I love cowboy shit, but cowboy shit when it's smart, not just wild people that don't know what they're doing going in. And I think by putting this policy down, or this general order down, it's going to hurt the first year or two. It's going to feel like it hurts. It sucks. Really, it's not hurting, but it sounds like it sucks. So you're telling me to go defensive? I don't want to do that. Well, now by putting it on paper, we can slap you on the wrist for it. Versus you ignoring ICS. Nobody's going to come. There's no ICS police. They're going to come down and slap you on the wrist. But if that command system is never getting established in a timely fashion, and they're choosing to prioritize that over any other operation, with the caveat, even inside of that, is if there's known victim, all bets are off. Go for it.
But when do we know there's a victim? Like what
Until it's
constitutes a known victim?
Right. And I think that's where you and I agreed, like, we're search culture people. We're going to go in and we're going to search the hell out of that building. And we've discussed this with Dave from Detroit. We've discussed this with Mike from the city of Rochester. And then again, Sean Egan from the city of Buffalo. What do you do for vacants? How do you know if there's a known or not a known? Nobody calls from there because nobody on paper or record lives there. So we're just going to assume nobody lives there.
So just so people know, an FSR chief officer is a fire suppression rescue officer. So I'm guessing that's
fire suppression.
So
I didn't
guessing,
know what R was.
I'm guessing because they run an ambulance service as well, and they probably have chief officers in their ambulance. It has to be a fire side chief officer that can take place of the battalion chief.
Gotcha.
But I mean,
I think it's a culture starter. To me, I think it's by establishing this, you get the first wave of officers on board with it, and then it's a monkey see, monkey do. That way, it's in their repertoire every single time. In a couple of years, this will be so fast paced, or everybody's going to start automatically sending 2 officers, whether that's 2 rigs on that first assignment, that's 5 rigs on that first. Somebody's going to be getting there quicker. It's going to push a different culture that you're going to have more than one arriving right off the bat.
Until there's that first fatality because they didn't go in.
Correct, yeah. I'm guessing this is a smart department, so this may be something that they're trying. They've weighed the pros and cons for themselves. It sounds like a lot of people are upset. They would not agree with this. I'm a little on the fence. I can understand it if that is their intent. Is, hey, we have a lack of established command. We need to start doing this. And by putting in policy, we can drive it.
That language of the known subjects is taken right out of the new OSHA 2 in and 2 out, which seems to have been delayed a little bit because of the public comments that were allowed to go out on it. Because that was, maybe a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, with some breathing room. Can you brief us on that real quick?
OSHA wanted to change the 2 in and 2 out rule to where we were not only was you were supposed to wait for 2 in and 2 out, 2 firemen interior, and then you had 2 firemen exterior. But then they said OSHA said you can't even go interior unless there was a known victim. And there was three circumstances that there was a known victim. I tried looking it up, but OSHA's website is terrible. I wanted to get the exact language for everybody, but shame on OSHA for not having.
It changed from the fire brigade standard to something else.
Yeah, I'm looking through it. Even the AI won't even bring it up the way I want it to be. And then when you click on the links, all it is responses to public comments. Let me see if I can find it. But we can still talk about it as I search through it. my thing is that you get a house fire at 2 in the morning.
Okay.
Are we going? Nobody's outside telling us that there's anybody inside. What fits this criteria of us knowing that there's a victim inside the structure? Like, how much leeway are we going to get for making this decision to go in?
Other than search, who's calling?
Right.
At 2 o'clock in the morning is, I think most of the time that we've responded at, in the middle of the night, it's the neighbors calling. There's a good bulk of the calls anyways, where the neighbors calling saying, "Hey, the house across the street from my address is on fire. I know people live there."
I'm going to play devil's advocate here. House fire at 2 a.m. Neighbor calls it in. They say, "Yeah, I know they live there." There's 2 cars in the driveway. I'm assuming somebody's in there. We go in, we search it. It's vacant. God forbid someone gets hurt. Now they're going to say, and if I was in the city of Chicago, are they going to come down on me and say there wasn't a known victim in there because they were on vacation and now somebody's hurt and you made the choice of going in?
How would you know that ahead of time?
Right, but that's why
that's great afterwards.
why do you put this in policy then? This should be
I
more of a guideline.
So it was a general order, and that
And
gets
general orders are not guidelines.
Correct. That's a subject that comes up at our work as well. General orders. What's the other one? Admin orders. They're separate. They can be rescinded. They're completely different from policies and procedures or SOGs. So it's an order. It's no different than being ordered on the
Right.
fireground to do something. It's just putting it. This is a very specific thing.
I don't know. I personally don't agree with it. That's just not the way I think firefighting should be done. I don't even want to know what the kitchen tables are like in Chicago right now.
It's like their version of the SAFE Act.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Yeah. For those of you listening that are outside New York, Google New York State SAFE Act, and you'll start to understand. And then how even some of the police departments and other law enforcement agencies, they were up in arms going, we're not going to enforce this. This is ridiculous. But it's, again, even use the SAFE Act for a standard here for a second. They were bulking everything together, and they were saying this is the best fit. This is a good curve that fits a good bulk of the people. Obviously not for everybody. Right. And in this case of this general order, I am led to believe, at least through reading that, through the context of just that general order alone, they want a presence of some sort of command position started at every single job. And they may not have been having that happen. So you give it, hey, I'm telling you, please establish command. Please establish command. You didn't establish command. Please establish it again. All right, that's it. We're putting it on paper. Everybody's going to do this. It's like it's the two extremes. You have nothing, now you have too much. And then watch this get pulled back eventually. Or it goes so fluidly that eventually nobody's ever going to have to look at this policy again, because now there's too many people showing up, or there's more people showing up right out the gate.
Yeah, but my point is that who are you if you're going to establish command? That policy says they're supposed to do defensive operations. What if it's just a back bedroom, a one-off room and contents fire? How are you going to fight that defensively?
Cool the window, I guess.
Right, yeah, if the window
what are you going to do?
Right, if the window hasn't. So what do you just stand there? How does that look in the public's eye with all the video cameras with the cell phone cameras?
Everything, yeah.
I mean, there was a guy that has an account that was watching firemen. I just saw it on the Instagram where it was one video where he's sitting there complaining that the fire department took 15 minutes to get there, and it was a garage going good, catching the house on fire, and good on the department. They contacted this individual and they showed them the run times and how calling 911 and how the computer system works and dispatch. And by the time the fire department was notified, to the time they were at the fire till they were at the incident was 5 minutes. And this good on this guy too. This guy went on his page and issued a public apology about him ranting about it took 15 minutes. Yeah, it might have took 15 minutes by the time he called 911, but by the time the fire department got notified to the fire department was at the front door of that house was 5 minutes. Now, I don't know what's going on in their dispatch system. It takes 10 minutes for all the computer stuff to go on, but
You'd be surprised at some of these places.
yeah.
That's another thing. I know we address this as we try to address this as best we can so that anybody in the fire service can relate to this, and sometimes we can educate the public if they're listening to this and they're like, "Oh, let's listen to these two knuckleheads." We try to break it down. There's a lot of stuff inside the fire service or public safety in general that I wish the public knew, so that they could better understand why there's what we see as deficiencies or excellences, and from our perspective, and then also from theirs. So that's a really good one. Why is it taking 15 minutes for the fire department to get here? Well, we may not have gotten it until 6 minutes into the call or 10 minutes into that call, because it's got to bounce around 911 systems, multiple callbacks, whatever, before it even gets coded or decided that, hey, we also need a fire department. There's a lot of systems out there that might just send some other unit altogether. I'll send the local sheriff, deputy out there to see it. Holy shit, this thing's blowing out the windows. Yeah, start me the fire department. Oh, okay. Well, now it's going to take another 8 minutes to get those guys rolling, started. There's a delay in progress.
So I think I finally got it. I'm going to scroll through this and find it. Maybe it's in, obviously it's 1910 subpart 1, so it's going to be 1910 134, the respiratory protection standard. I'm going to scroll through this, but I know there's 3 factors that said when they could go, what constitutes a known victim. But what is the span of control that we're always taught in ICS?
It's 3 to 7, optimum 5.
And what's the size of an engine company or a truck company usually?
Usually 4 total.
So, and this, I guess this whole argument, the biggest thing is not whether they're using the company officer as a formal command officer. The biggest gripe, I guess, people can see is them not letting them go interior until there is a battalion chief, because they're trying to do 2 things with one. They're trying to establish a formal command, which, to your point, is a good thing. But then they're not allowing their men to go, or men or women to go interior and fight a fire. Now, I will say that in the OSHA standard, it says you do not need 2 in and 2 out when the fire is in the incipient stage.
Mm-hmm.
But there's been plenty of fires where, and that's the other thing. How do you know when it's in the incipient stage? You have to go inside.
Gotta go take a look.
You gotta take a look.
Gotta open the oven.
Right. They're trying to curb, if they're going off the Project Mayday statistics, where they don't want to have a Mayday because there's not a formal supervisor inside with their suppression team and or truck company performing searches. So they're telling them that they have to stay outside. But why not just let the engine company officer go inside? Now, I don't know. Maybe, like you said, maybe they have a lot of new green company officers that don't have the experience. But I'm guessing in the city of Chicago, they're getting experience more than some.
They got to be pretty quickly gaining, yeah. The defensive line, I think, is an added roadblock to make sure that they follow this policy. Yes, the men and women are going, wait, you just took something away from our playbook. You're telling us not to do our job here for a second, but really I believe through reading this that it's to double down to make sure that officer is doing their role by positioning them in an established command position. Okay, you say, hey, I'm on location. I will be establishing command in the driveway, let's say. And by saying we're going to be taking that defensive mode, it's doubling down, saying because you are in the command position, you cannot also be a company officer momentarily, right? Because your company officer is always with that group. If you want to be a company officer, you need to be relieved of that command position, and then you can go back to being a company officer. And those new rules, otherwise, at the national level, are saying we don't want you operating interior as a crew without your boss. It's from the accountability standpoint. What is that crew doing? How are they getting information to the outside, sharing information to the outside? That's always through that company officer. Are there good firemen who can operate, a hand line and work the radio? But yeah, probably. I mean, we can name a handful of people that are just rock stars, just studs. But at the same time, that's great. They're doing a little extra than what the requirement is. And the requirement, it says, got to have a company officer with them, establishing those different levels. And by putting a roadblock on that officer, that I keep saying hurts the men and women, but it's really doubling down to make sure that officer, if you establish command, you're in that position. Don't even hesitate to, don't try to relieve yourself. Don't try and go one step other or double task, because now you're going to be too far extended in your position and your duties.
But my point is, what are you in command of? One company.
One company.
And you're not letting them go inside. So, and I completely forgot about this. This is from Project Mayday, but this stems from when firefighter Tarvers from the city of Phoenix succumbed to that grocery store fire that they had.
Mm-hmm.
After that fatal fire, the city of Phoenix did a bunch of tests on RIC teams. To get one fireman out of a Mayday, it took 4 RIC teams, so it's 16 more firemen, and out of those 4 RIC teams, multiple or more Maydays occurred because of that. Now, that's an argument against the 2 in and 2 out, because there's lots of arguments against 2 in and 2 out. One, who are the 2 going in?
Usually it's your officer, and then if it's an engine, your nozzleman.
So if you have your officer and your nozzleman going in, at least your officer should have some sort of experience, supervision, and everything else. The other part of that Project Mayday study was it was in the 70s up to 80% of all Maydays. Those firemen were rescued either by themselves or their company that they were working with. So the RIC teams don't work, so there's no point for 2 in and 2 out. I'm not saying there's no point. I mean, there is a point, and RIC teams should be established, but they're not as effective as we think they are. Because the numbers don't lie. The vast majority of Maydays that occur, the company that they're working with or the companies that are already operating on the inside are the ones that affect the rescue of the downed firemen. We can already prevent Maydays by having the company officer supervising the interior crews. It seems like the city of Chicago knew all these statistics and said, well, we're going to prevent the Mayday wholesale by not letting them go in at all. That's the part that doesn't sit well with me. And I get your point. You don't want the cowboy stuff happening, but man, we're firemen, supposed to put fires out.
Right. That's why. So either this thing will be rescinded or recalibrated, or eventually this will be a moot point because everybody's just going to be doing this by repetition anyways, or there's going to be more people thrown at it from the beginning. Maybe it's extra staff. Who knows?
And maybe
it's identifying a problem that they have.
Maybe, and let's just put on the other side. Maybe this is a good thing if their staffing levels. This could be something their union can use.
There you go.
City, you put this policy on us that says we can't go in because we don't have enough. We don't have a battalion chief here. You either need to promote more battalion chiefs and make more battalions, or put more rigs on the road so we have more company officers and more rigs and more rigs showing up.
And when they fire back and say no, we can't, that's when as a union, or you can even do this in a volunteer setting too. If you're trying to get more membership or trying to get some more excitement, you turn to the town folk. Hey, you start showing that mission statement. You start showing them the books. Here's the stats of all our calls. And now the department or the district or the city wants us to do more with less. And boom, now here's this national law or national rule. Now they're putting in policy. They're doubling down on it. We can't. So you start putting it out, feeling it out to the public, going, hey, don't yell at the ground pounders when your stuff's burning to the ground because we're standing in the front yard waiting for more people to show up. This isn't on us. We want to go in. We want to help you guys. We want to do our jobs. We want you to be proud of it. Blah, blah, blah. We need your support. Go
Well,
down to the town meeting on Tuesday night or whatever.
but with that policy, the one thing that they would have to do is put more battalion chiefs on, because they're not letting them go interior until a chief officer is on scene,
Right.
per that policy. Now, I remember years ago, when we're talking maybe 20 years ago, the city of Rochester, when they ran Quinton Middies as their truck companies, and they ran it pretty effective. They ran a 2-person Midi company and a 4-person truck company. So essentially, their truck companies were six members out of a firehouse. If a battalion, and they also had 3 battalions at the time, so they had more. They had one more battalion chief than they do now. From my understanding, is if the battalion chief was delayed arrival, the truck officer would act as the command officer until he was relieved by a battalion chief. But they didn't delay interior operations. And that was because the engine company would do their engine stuff with their engine boss, and their truck companies, at that point, you had 2 on the MIDI, you had your OV and can, or whatever they called them, in the back seat, you had your
Mm-hmm.
ladder chauffeur, he's operating the aerial. So that allowed the truck boss to stand out front and be a formal incident commander.
So is this OG here? Would this, by adding that line of saying, hey, you have to also go defensive, is that taking that boss out of play for 2 in and 2 out? Do you suppose?
I don't think, no, from reading the OSHA standard, it doesn't.
So if you send 2 guys in, if you just got rid of that one little line, go defensive automatically, even for 30 seconds, and I'm guessing 30 seconds or less, you send your 2 guys in, 2 other guys. So now it's your nozzleman and say the backup guy or the OV guy, whatever. For us, it's very confusing, but the 2 backseaters in. So now the chauffeur and the boss are outside. That's still two in, 2 out, is it not?
According to the OSHA standard, that would suffice for 2 in and 2 out.
Why would you? What do you think about that? Do you think that if you just took that out, then this OG could be okay?
No, because now you're going against the whole Project Mayday statistics. Now they don't
Okay.
have formal supervision.
Well, the boss should still be on the outside.
They're
Inside, you mean
inside. They're not
interior? They
supervising
don't
them
have.
inside.
Yeah.
And who knows? I mean, I don't know what who carries a tick on their rigs. Right now in our department, only the officers have the ticks. Hopefully that's changing within the near future, that we're going to get some more. We're working on that. One of the departments to the north of us, every member of the truck company has some sort of thermal imaging camera. I mean, they have the Seek options out there that are substantially lower in price than your standard. We break them up into decision making cameras and situational awareness cameras. Your decision making cameras, like your Bullards, your MSAs, your Scott cameras. And then you have your situational awareness cameras, which is essentially just really are your Seeks that are out there. I know MSA has one that's not really that user friendly, but I don't know their tick situation in Chicago Fire Department. But if that policy came to our department, you're leaving your guy with a tick outside, and you're letting your nozzleman and maybe backup guy or hydrant / backup guy, go in interior to fight and find a fire without a thermal imaging camera. I'm not saying that's the end of the world, because they did it for how many years without it. But with the fast pace of our fire dynamics, how fast these fires, the heat flux, how fast grows and how much heat is produced with the pretty much solid gasoline products that we furnish our houses with, they don't have that option. If the tick is outside, our members inside now don't have that option, don't have that safety built into the technology that we have. And I know there's some old salts out there, and I respect them. You know, the ticks failed. You know, the batteries never lasted. I'll tell you what, the tick technology now, just since I've been on the job for 18 years, has gone light years. It's like cell phones. I remember when we would turn on our tick in the beginning of the morning, and just in the beginning of the morning, just turning it on to test it, you would watch it lose 1 bar of battery. Now the ticks that are running that we have, and they're old, they're probably 10 years old. The batteries last what, an hour, hour and a half on them,
Yeah, a little bit.
and that's
You
old,
know,
and
we
it's
swap them out maybe
yeah,
once a shift.
and it's older technology. These new ticks, they're saying they can last 4, 6, 8 hours on a charge. And you want to see how long does the C charge last on them?
Oh man, if I leave it on, about 2 hours
It,
at this rate.
and if you're using a tick for 2 hours straight, we got other issues. We're putting up the give up sticks at this point. We got other
Or I
st-
forget it's on.
yeah, or you forget it's on, you know.
I forget it's on.
But I mean, I hate to see having that piece of technology just left outside the front door when it's
So
such a useful tool.
what would you how would you react if this got, we call them 430 emails, right? If you got a 430 email today that stated this exact OG,
Oh, I wouldn't be happy.
wouldn't be happy. What could we do to improve from there?
We would have to, in my mind, as a whole, we would have to better train our firemen in fire behavior so we can make a case that we're making entry. Because if we're going off of and that's where I don't know this standard even says when they can and cannot make entry based off of fire conditions. And shame on me because maybe I missed it. Maybe it was in there.
I did read it when it was out because they gave that timetable. They gave a long OSHA did put out, hey, here's all the things we're going to change to. We'll let you guys review. And then there was commentary that could come back. So they had it open. It was real easy to find. I haven't taken a look since, so I don't know either.
So, I mean, that's the thing. Do they ensure the safe deployment company? Is it, if the incident is a working fire, the fire attack will begin with the defensive operation. In my mind, I just don't call it a working fire. And we had this discussion at a fire a couple years ago where the engine officer asked, I was the first unit on scene, and I just gave my size up report. And he goes, well, why didn't you say it was a working fire? I said, based off of my size up report, everybody knew it was a working fire. In my mind, the battalion chief is seconds away from me. That's his checkbox to check off that it's a working fire. And the battalion chief agreed with me. And one of the only times he probably agrees with me on some things on that. I was like,
so now we'd have to lay out what is a working fire.
Right. And now to me, that's where that SOG, and I don't know if they have what is a working fire SOG. I mean, I wish the people that put it out on the socials also put out, if they have one, put out
to compare notes. Right.
This is a working fire. This isn't a working fire, because every fire officer has a different idea of what a working fire is. I've seen a garage can on the side of a house that had some extension to the siding being called a working fire. I didn't call a working fire when it was probably one of the more substantial fires we had in a while. I've seen working fires get called by battalion chiefs before they were even on scene, just based off the header. Right, wrong, or indifferent. I mean, if they don't have a policy on what a working fire is, I guess that's maybe some leeway. I mean, firemen, they're the Philadelphia lawyers, man. As some people like to say, hey, we didn't call it a working fire, chief. We went inside. That's
Yeah.
probably what I would do. You know, hey, I didn't call it working fire. I was just on scene with smoke showing.
You're you're beating around the bush there with the idea that the firemen will take whatever rules you throw at them and they will find a workaround. And every time I hear that saying, or I hear an example that mimics that saying, I always my uncle went to a safari a million years ago, like 40 years ago. And he said the one thing that stood out to him going on a safari was if there was a car that had rust holes, that car was screwed. And everybody warns you, don't drive a car in a safari with rust holes. And they're like, why? Well, sure enough, the one ahead of him had a couple rust holes in it. And the monkeys that came out and they want to get inside because they don't know if you have food. You know, everybody hands shit out the window. It's a safari. You pay to go and view the monkeys behind the glass, right? Well, they work their fingers through those little rust holes and start peeling and peeling and peeling. It's not, it's not the monkey's fault. I'm not calling us monkeys, but you gave us a rusty car.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what do you think we're gonna do with it? It's just kind of funny. I always think of that stupid that stupid story
But
every time there's something. It's like, oh, watch us work our way around it. Oh, we didn't violate the rule because we didn't call a working fire chief. I don't know what to tell you.
in this,
Okay, fine. We'll come out with a new rule.
and in this instance, I don't think sometimes that bites us as firemen. A lot of times that bites us as firemen. But in this instance, I think it's good because it just shows you that the firemen want to do their job. They took this job to fight fire. Now you're telling them they can't fight fire. So
I
I'm
agree.
gonna figure out a way where I can fight fire.
Which makes me think that this policy wasn't directed towards firefighters. It was about the officers, the lowest level officer that you have. So the very first step officer, junior guys you can get. What do they do when they arrive way ahead of the rest of the band? I think that's what the point of this establishment was. Not realizing, oh my God, you didn't realize it's the monkeys with the rust holes,
What
you know?
man, can you imagine though being a first in officer out of a double house and you got to hold back 8, maybe 10 firemen from going inside because there's no battalion chief on scene?
That's the same
You're gonna
same
be
thing my buddy said. He said something very similar to
you're gonna
that,
be
and I
like
immediately went, "Well, we have history of this. It was the Worcester Six, but
that's a
that's completely different."
you're gonna
And
look
I'm like, "All right,
you're gonna look
that's
like
not it."
Kevin Bacon in I'm I don't know, I'm date myself. It's a classic movie. Every fireman should watch it. Um, you're gonna be like Kevin Bacon in the movie Animal House when he's the ROTC student during the parade when he's trying to stop all the people from running after the Animal House fraternities ruining the parade. And he's standing there, remain calm, all is well. And then he gets trampled over by,
Trampled.
yeah, and then he's flattened.
I'm trying to think. So I got a breakdown of it, but I'm looking through, see if there's anything specific. Oh no, that was it. Just saying it was changing to more of the They're specifying NFPA specifically so that it can no longer be issued as a guideline. These changes include removing a very important provision, the 2 in, 2 out requirements for structural firefighters that is currently in the 1910.134, the respiratory protection standard, and incorporating it into the revised 1910.156. That provision, which changes OSHA's traditional 1 out standard application to general industry to the current 2 in, 2 out for structural firefighters, was precedent setting when adopted in 1998.
Yeah, I think the 2 in and 2 out rule, it was, I wasn't around, I wasn't firefighting in 1998, but I'm pretty sure it was probably had the same sort of kitchen table talk that this policy is having in the city of Chicago right now.
I'm guessing.
And people manage with it because the 2 in and 2 out rule stated that I forgot what it was, like suspected victims were the new policy that everybody was concerned over when it came out for public comments, was that they laid out 3 specific reasons for a known victim, where the original 2 in and 2 out rule gave you a lot of leeway to go interior. There was a car in the driveway. I thought there was somebody home. I think now it's a little more stringent. I think the public comments kind of quelled that a little bit because I can't find that policy anywhere. And if anybody can find the policy, email it to us or shoot us a DM and Instagram because I would like to read through it again. I should have saved it when it first came out, but it was one of those. I'm probably not going to change the way I operate until they put a general order out here.
Hmm. Oh, this is hours of reading. I could get through all this right now. Anyways, so yeah, that was the interpretation that I got from it was it was more directed about the officer role, a junior officer role, as they're arriving on scene and establishing that command. And I know the topic comes up at work. When does that junior officer establish a command? I've watched my lieutenant. Uh, he took a pause and goes, "Hey, wait a minute! The battalion chief's on another assignment. I got to establish command," and he did. Now, different outcome, different take on the whole thing, but he did take that pause and go, "Hey, that's my responsibility. I have to do it," and called it. Now, the battalion chief was only moments behind. So it ultimately didn't really affect anything because we were still getting off the load just as the chief was pulling up. But what if that was a full minute or 2 minutes?
Yeah, and the other concern I have is this a knee jerk? And this because I don't know, I'm not a city of Chicago fireman. Was this a knee jerk reaction to something that happened? Did did an incident occur where someone got a bug up their butt and now we have this policy where if we're going off of the assumption that this policy was created for the reasons that you stated, that they're worried about their junior officers, they're worried about experience. You know what? Give them more training then. Get them onto the training grounds. Put them in the when I went to flips at the FDNY, and I think the program's gotten a lot better. They sit you down in front of a computer screen and they go through a fire from responding to you're at the front door, you're going inside, you're fighting the fire, and you give radio reports. And next to you is a seasoned fire officer, not telling you what to do, but more or less critiquing your decisions that you've made and making suggestions. This is what you could have done better. And you're able to make the decisions on the computer. Now that was back in 2014. I think the program's gotten a lot better in the 11 years since I've been there. I know there's other programs out there. There's the fire simulation programs that are out there. We used to run one when I was a training officer here. I'd put those simulations out for the guys to go through. It was computer generated simulation, but you could take a picture of a house that is in our district. Now the interior wouldn't be the same because we wouldn't go in through the houses, but I could have gone through like my own house and taken pictures. I could have gone through my old man's house and taken pictures and used those pictures for a fire simulation and let our officers sit through that. I think that would have been a better way if that's what their concern was, is that we have too many junior officers that don't know how to make decisions, and not they should know how to make decisions because they're in that position, but maybe they haven't had the experience to make some of the more difficult decisions. Well, let's put them
Right.
in those difficult situations on the training ground and train them how to make those decisions.
And that may be coming down the pipe. That right now this gets everybody on the same page, and then we'll work up to that. It could be that let's stop this in its tracks type of thing. Not scorched earth, but you're tilling the garden over again. And then you're going to plant all your seeds, and then you're going to pull up weeds one at a time as they present, versus trying to suss out who's doing it, who's not doing it, who's trained, who's not trained. I don't know. I kind of got that vibe. There's more to the story. Obviously, we're not defending it. We're not. We're trying to be as objective as possible with reviewing this, and that's all we're doing. Is what are some of the limitations to this that could be presented? What are some other people saying? And hey, what are some other ways of looking at it? Um,
It's like with
so
anything. I think just probably gone too far to the one side.
yes,
They might have been way over on this other side where they were doing some stuff that was unsafe. And I know firefighting's unsafe, but we can operate as safe as we can. they might have gone way too far into the safety side of this. There should have been something in the middle. I don't know what the middle was. I don't know what the discussions were. I'm not a chief officer. I don't plan on being a chief officer. I want to ride a fire truck and break shit. So
Yeah, this does feel more like, both bumpers on the bowling alley lane are up right now and bounces both ways until it gets all the way down. You know, they'll get to the part where they can get it down the center, drop those guardrails. I think that's more along the lines of what's happening here.
yeah,
But until we can get somebody on that's from Chicago that knows exactly what's what, we're speculating, but we're doing our best to be objective about it. And how does it apply to everybody? Because everybody else is like, down with Chicago. They're telling them not to fight fire. Hang on.
well, and it's not the guys.
Right.
You can't bash the guys. It's
Right.
and I don't even who the chief of Chicago is. I don't care who they are. I don't know what the reasons they have their reasons. I don't agree with them. I think limiting the first in engine company or even at whatever company to go to tell them that they have to go defensive till a battalion chief is on scene. I think it's detrimental to the public trust that we've earned.
Yeah.
Trust
Yeah.
goes away real quick.
And this is going to be an overplay until somebody's, like you said, either somebody gets injured or someone loses a lot of their valuable goods and gets upset about it. That's what's going to happen. Hey, why are you not putting out my house fire?
Right.
What are you doing standing in the front yard? Look at these guys. You get the phone out there on the, live online.
Yep. Ratchet
FD Live coming at you.
was it. Who's the guy in Atlanta that does the reporting in his bathrobe?
I was going to bring him up. Dude, he's awesome. I love watching him. This guy, for those who haven't been on the internet at all in the last couple months, there's a guy that's going around to fire scenes, responding and pretending as if he's a newscaster live on the scene, but he's in a bathrobe. He's got the flip flops on or something. He's funny, and actually, you can tell through his commentary that he's actually learning a lot from the
Yes.
fire
Yeah.
service each time he goes because his vocabulary is getting better. What he's looking at, he's now recognizing. Oh, they're doing this because of blah, 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 blah. Like he's becoming knowledgeable in the fire service without ever having touched a hose line.
Yeah. And
It's pretty
and
cool
he's
to
got
watch.
great videos for people that want to watch,
Yeah, what
operational
the fuck
videos.
is that
But
guy's?
one of the most followed accounts is the Citizens app account, which is in the city of Chicago. Where
I am unfamiliar.
Citizens app, people take videos of anything, any emergency that's going on, and this account somehow grabs their videos and puts it out for everybody to see.
I didn't even know about this.
And I know Chicago's on there. I know they have a Citizens app Chicago, and Chicago's a big city. It's a fun city to go to. Every time I go to Chicago, I have a great time.
I've been there once, and it was right when COVID kicked off. Literally, it was a St. Patrick's Day. We went to one bar, and the bar said, "All right, everybody get a drink, but we got to close down." So the whole crowd moved, went to the next bar. They let us get one more drink, and then we just did that all the way until we got to Navy Pier, and then the city was empty.
Yeah,
It was a ghost town. It was bizarre. That's all I know about Chicago. I got to get back there.
there's a lot of people, a lot of cell phones, which means there's a lot of cameras watching you.
Yeah.
So,
Citizens app.
yeah, God bless the guys that the men and women that are working in Chicago that are probably going to be under the microscope for the next who knows how long, because this policy is out there. Whoever, obviously someone that was very upset about it leaked it, and here we are. I mean, there's some bigger accounts out there that are bashing the living daylights out of it. You're a little bit more objective than I am. I'm kind of leaning towards that. This is kind of a BS policy. I think I just hope it wasn't a knee jerk reaction to something. I hope there was some foundation and thought process that went into this. I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it because they went too far to the safety side.
I think that's fair. That's a very fireman answer and outlook that presents like you're taking something away from a value away from their job that they hold dearly. Not only is it a duty of their job, but it's something of value.
The,
You know that.
the, the trust of the public. They call 911 and they expect a fireman to be showing up in their turnout gear, which is thousands of dollars worth of gear with thousands of dollars worth of equipment, and they're expect to, the old saying, they're running in, firemen are running in as we're running out. Well, now this policy says the firemen are standing outside as everybody's running out until that battalion chief with a white shirt and however many bugles Chicago uses for their battalion chief comes on scene, and
Mhm.
now they're the one that allows the firemen to go inside.
Right. And I just thought of this. I didn't consider this till just now. This is also looking as a rig is an entire rig with an officer is rolling there, where you have other departments, and typically you're going to see it in your far out communities, volunteer setting. Maybe there's a small paid department too, but those two are separated. The boss and the rig or the guys, or maybe they're responding from home and just one person's on the rig brings it. That's the only duty person, is just your job is to bring that rig to the scene and you're waiting for everybody. That's a whole different ball game that I think an establishment of command or at least some sort of ICS needs to be present so that we can start funneling people in. Okay, I got when I get 4 people, now they're assigned to
Yeah,
this
yeah,
task. When I
that's
get next
that's good.
4, I can do this. But somebody needs to group those things and put them to task
Yes,
versus the first person that shows up and they're in their shorts and their hey dudes and they're like, well, I'm going to go into this thing. They kick open the front door to go take a look because maybe it was an alarm call, and we know how annoying those things can get. And then all of a sudden, boom, something's blowing out at them.
and I think that's and I
No
mentioned I
establishment.
mentioned when I first got on the job, that's how our chief wanted us to operate, was that he wanted the duty officer who was a lieutenant. We had two lieutenants that worked opposite shifts, and then we had two group officers that were just firemen that made 50 cents more an hour as a group leader. They wanted them to establish command, and I think it's because at the time we had so many volunteers that they needed to corral the incoming units to make sure there was a formal command outside. But that policy didn't really get changed until our assistant chief came on board, which is
Mm,
2012.
yeah. It was a long time, long time.
Yeah, we didn't have that. We had a chief, and then we had a volunteer fire chief, and we didn't have a paid assistant chief. That changed a lot of the culture here for good. It took 5 years for me to be on a job, but that culture
Yeah.
changed, and we went
There's a
we
bigger picture,
yeah
I'm sure.
we went the other way. We said the bosses are going in, and we're a smaller department,
Hmm.
but our department does give the bosses leeway. Is probably not the best term. They give them authority to make that decision whether they need to establish a formal command or they're just going to go in with their guys. I'm going to say right now, 99%, it's going to be a very extenuating circumstance where my rig shows up first on scene, and I'm going to be like, you guys go in. I'm going to stand outside and make sure things get handled correctly out here.
Yeah.
I
I'm
can't,
going to the driveway across the street.
yeah, I can't even think of a scenario where that would happen. And we're not even talking about the command from in vehicle or the roaming command.
Right.
I To me, I don't care as long as I know who's in command. I see the benefits to both, and that's one of those things where some days the argument for the command inside the vehicle, people that make the argument for it, I'm like, those are all valid points. Those are all real good ideas. Maybe we should do that. And then I hear some old salt saying he's going to have command and he wants to walk around and hey man, if they have that command presence and they know that voice and they know who that chief is command, walk around all you want. We know who's in command.
Hmm.
I see both sides of that argument, right, where I really don't care who wants to be in what. There are times when that roving command annoys the shit out of me. There's been some jobs where I've tried to do a face to face with the incident commander, where he was in one spot at 1 second, and I'm like, all right, I'm just going to go do face to face with him and save radio transmission, save from me talking over the
Right.
radio. And I look down to see something, and I pick my head up, and now he's gone. I'm like, where the fuck did he go? He's over here
Right.
now. It's like, stay in one spot for a second,
Anything more with that policy that you want to hit on?
I don't think so. I mean, like I said, if anybody can find that revised standard that was put out there, shame on me for not saving it, and shame on me for not finding it. But I would like to look at it again. It's tough to look for it while we're sitting here chatting.
Yeah, I have a couple of documents that I'm gonna have to peruse through them. I didn't want to take too much time away and to dig them out, but we did a sit down, at least in the county that I live in. We did a sit down, and they brought all the chiefs, instructors, everybody, and they did a PESH representative. So New York State PESH
Yeah.
oversees OSHA for New York State. They came and they displayed everything, all the bullet points, and then they went through a questions and answer. Like, what is this going to mean for my department? How do I implement this? What do I got to get on task with, for X, Y, and Z? And it was very informational. There was a lot in, I think it was like 3 hour session. Not enough time, but
Yeah, for
they only
those
briefed
not
me. Everybody was more worried about the cost savings versus the 2 in, 2 out.
those not in New York
I
State,
thought it was
PESH stands
interesting.
for Public Employee Safety and Health. So because firemen fall under public employees, New York State, in typical New York State fashion, has their own entity for safety and health. OSHA still is in New York State, but that they just have purview over the private sector.
So more to come. So it's been a little bit. We apologize. We between scheduling and work has been busy. It's been a busy season all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So we're most of us are working nonstop. It's good to be back. Feels like it's almost been a month, I think. Not quite, but almost. Those that have questions, comments, and concerns, please reach out to us. We have the Gmail, which is firefrom2windows@gmail.com. All letters, no numbers. I think I got that one right this time. We got the Instagram. Tell us more about the Instagram.
It's going. Put a post up. I took a little break just because we've been so freaking busy. Kids baseball's busy, but I'll have some more free time. Get some more stuff
Awesome.
up there.
Summer season brings out, it's always like the summer people are coming alive, and then the next season's going to be fall, and that's all the hunters are going
Yeah.
to be out.
Yep.
It's kind of, it's going to be like this up until January again, and once that snow settles, then everybody suddenly has time.
Yep.
So, please support the show any way you can. The best way to do that is hit your like or subscribe, and depends on what platform you're listening to us on. That doesn't really do much for us. It doesn't pay us. We don't get anything else. It does get us a couple hits, but the big portion of that is it helps reach out to other people. So if you like it and your buddy follows you, or you guys are somehow connected, they'll see it. If you're on Apple, hit that subscribe. Everybody else that's in your family or whatever, it'll start showing up a little bit higher, especially the fire service community. So I think we fall in the category of career, something that career and education.
And we're on
It
YouTube
helps
now.
move us. And we're on YouTube. YouTube's a big one. A lot of people across the globe actually search more podcasts on YouTube than any other place. So we decided to put it out there. And it's not to get a bigger spotlight on us, it's to get a bigger audience to engage with, to have a conversation. Again, this is community driven. So we want to reach out to you. We want all of your input, your guidance, topics to talk about. And if you find yourselves in one of these smaller departments, or a place where you might be lower rung on the ladder and don't feel comfortable bringing something up, that's okay. Reach out to us. We will keep it anonymous. We'll come up with something so that your voice is also heard, and we can get some conversation rolling. That's what this is all about. So instead of you coming to the firehouse table and sitting around with us, we're trying to bring that out to you digitally. I think that's about it. That
That's it,
wraps it
brother.
up.
Time to get a workout in.
That's right. Mine's
Yeah.
done for the day. It's time for bed. So with that, everybody stay safe. And Lou, I'll see you later.
See you, brother.